Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Evans Life, a remarkable adventure podcast. Bob Evans with my beautiful wife, Diane.
Hello, everybody.
We are the parents of 18 children, and we are on this remarkable adventure, sharing it with you in the hopes of being able to help you to create your own remarkable adventure, whatever that may look like. Certainly, we don't expect yours to look like ours, but you never know. Anyway, we are delighted today to welcome to the podcast Pamela Atkinson, who is a dear, dear friend. And if you live in the Utah area, you are already familiar with Pamela. She is an incredible advocate for the homeless families and individuals, refugees, low-income people. She helps to prevent child abuse and collaborates with a variety of nonprofit and governmental organizations, as well as agencies who serve these populations. She was appointed to the State Board of Regents for 10 years. She has also served on the State Board of Education and the Utah College of Applied Technology Board. She now serves on the State Homeless Coordinating Committee and Vision Utah, Utah Coalition Against Pornography, and the State Refugee Advisory Board. Pamela also works with Governor Spencer Cox as an advisor on policy and strategy, and works with legislators here in Utah regarding funding and public policy. Now, in addition to all of that, she strongly believes that we should never underestimate the power of impact on people from even a small amount of giving and caring. She is the mother of 3 children, has 10 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, and she is an elder in the First Presbyterian Church in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
Pamela Atkinson, thank you so much. Welcome to the Evans Life, a remarkable adventure podcast. We're delighted you're here.
Thank you so much.
Let's just start. How did your life turn this way? Have you always been aware of the needs of other people? Is it something that grew and developed? Tell us how you started on this journey.
Well, it started a long time ago, Diane. Excuse me. I grew up in poverty, close to the slums in London, and I know there was never enough money for rent and food and all kinds of things. I didn't like being poor at all. One got bullied at school because of the state of one's clothes and also the state of one's hygiene. I realized, though, that not everybody was poor like we were. And I wondered what it was that made some people have great houses, homes, great families. And I realized that if I could get a good education, maybe I could get out of poverty. And so when I was 14, I made a vow that I was going to double my work at school. I was going to succeed at school, and that I was going to grow up and marry a rich man and never have anything to do with poor people again. Well,
I'm in tears.
But it seemed to me I did become a nurse. And it seemed to me that in nursing, I found the satisfaction of helping people. And I loved to make people comfortable. I loved to give them back rubs in the middle of the night instead of a second sleeping pill, and just to listen to people and talk with them. And I loved being able to spend time with their families and learn more about them. And when I came to the United States, I was encouraged to go on to school. So I did just that. And I'm glad that I did. I learned so much in school. And I realized, America was a land of opportunity. And that if you took advantage of these opportunities, you could have a great life. I think they call it the American dream. and I feel I have had a good life. And when we were living in Seattle, I heard a plea for people to serve dinner to homeless people at the Salvation Army. And so my family and I went down, and I could not believe how grateful people were for the dinner and for being served a sit-down dinner. And in talking with many of them, I decided this is something I could do to help out. And when I moved here to Salt Lake, I joined up with the Salvation Army and then with St. Vincent de Paul, and just thoroughly enjoy serving dinner. In fact, I just got off the phone, and a colleague and I are going out on Thanksgiving Day to serve our homeless friends in the camps. And then on Christmas Day, we serve a steak dinner to about 1,200 people who are homeless and low income. And we've done that now for about 19 years. And I thought I might take a year off, but I'll tell you, my homeless friends have been letting me know they really would like to have it again. It's a very special day for them. The Church of Jesus Christ gives me the steaks and the potatoes and the rolls, and Gail Miller has helped with funding too. And so we can get pies and salads and vegetables, and we get donations, and everybody gets some gifts after they've had a good meal. So it's just one of those days that you feel very tired by 7 o'clock in the evening, but so satisfied, really.
Wow, just there.
Well, you bring up a beautiful point, and that is that, when you are in the service of your fellow beings, and I know this comes from Scripture, you're only in the service of your God. And we are here to talk about that a little bit today, because I don't know of anyone, Pamela, who is more engaged in serving other people than you are. And you and I have known each other for a long, long time and have been dear friends all that time. And as I have observed your life, I have noticed that you operate from such a foundation of love for other people that it truly is remarkable. Can you describe to us what drives you? I mean, I say it's love, but what's in your heart?
Well, it's love also. Excuse me. I know that the Lord has a plan for me, and I'm trying to fulfill that plan. And I firmly believe that we are the hands of Christ to do his work here on earth. If I want to give God a good chuckle, I tell him, I've got plans. This is what I'm going to do. And it just doesn't work that way. It actually works through my listening and being aware of what is around me. Is there something right here next to me that I am supposed to be doing? And when I get one of numerous calls for help, I evaluate it very carefully and to see, am I the right person to help this family? Or is there somebody else with more expertise? And I have a huge network of resource experts. And so sometimes I'll call some colleagues and I'll say, I have this family, but I'm not the expert in the area. They need help. Could you please help and make sure they connect? And then I step away after facilitating that. But I just feel we're all got designations where we're supposed to be on each day. And if we're going to do what the Lord is asking us to do, then we need to be out and about or on the phone helping out. And I just find I get what I call a holy nudge. And that's when the Lord is nudging me. There's somebody over there, Pamela, or down that street or in that car that needs help. If it's at the end of the day and I'm tired and I'm reluctant, that nudge turns into a holy shove. And I literally move very quickly at that point. I just get out of my car and say, okay, Lord, you win. I'll go see what needs to be done.
You know, you talked about a principle that is so so hard to follow sometimes. We as human beings, we wind up feeling tired, and worn out. And especially, like as you've described, after a Christmas dinner where you've served how many hundreds and hundreds of steaks to hundreds and hundreds of people. And it's 7 o'clock at night and you're sitting in your car and you get that holy nudge where you go, Pamela, that guy over there needs some help. You need to, and you go, oh man. How do you get past oh man, I don't know if I can do one more. How do you get past that?
Well, I rely on the scriptures, and it says in the scriptures that the Lord would never ask us to do things for which he doesn't give us strength. And it's really remarkable. My exhaustion just goes away and I get renewed strength. And so I call upon that scripture to sustain me.
Wow, you are an inspiration just in that little bit of information you've already shared. That is great stuff. So you get a holy nudge. So tell somebody how they can identify that. How do they know it's a holy nudge and just not a thought, or could it be the same thing?
Yeah, self-talk,
That's a great question, Diane, because I have learned how to decide between what it is I want to do and what it is the Lord wants me to do. And very often they're the same thing, but sometimes it's not. So I have to be very careful about that. But I usually get my answer right away, because if I get this holy nudge and go to intervene, I think to myself, of course, this is why I'm needed here. It's like I was delivering some, I think it was baby clothes to one of our resource centers for a lady who just had a baby. And I said to the staff member, what's wrong with that lady in that car? She was way behind me. And she said, I don't know. She's been there a while. So I finished unloading my car and got into my car. And that's when I felt a really strong feeling that I needed to go and see why was she sitting in her car there. So I went back, and here was the lady who was crying, obviously pregnant, and a little girl in the back seat. She actually was 9 months pregnant, and she said she'd come here to this shelter hoping she could get some diapers. She said, I don't have any baby clothes, and my baby's due on Saturday with a C-section. And she said, my little girl has some mental problems, and so it's been very difficult. And I listened and then took some information, and I told her that the next day, which was Friday, I'd be back at her house. And at my first Presbyterian church, we have a room called Pamela's Closet that members donate to. And so we had a lot of baby clothes. So I got a lot of clothes from there, and I took them out to her house the next day. Well, she called me later, and she'd had the baby on the Saturday, and she was going to be able to come home. The baby wasn't, a little underweight. She'd been taking drugs and hadn't got off them soon enough. So the baby had to stay in the hospital, but she needed a freezer so she could express her milk and save it. And when the baby was a month or two old, the baby's immune system would be able to tolerate it. Cut a long story short, I got a freezer from one of the local stores, and the guys put it in my car, and I drove out there when she came home. But, I hadn't thought, and there were steps down to her apartment, and I thought, I can't carry it. She couldn't carry it. So there was a man standing in the parking lot with a toddler, and I went over to him and I said, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I have this freezer for Chantel down here. Well, he said, yeah. And he said, you want me to help? I said, could you please? So he did. He carried the freezer down himself, which was great, and we got it set up. When I was leaving, I got into my car and I looked over there, and Tom was standing over there fixing his car. And I suddenly realized I needed to do something for him. It was a holy nudge. So I checked my wallet, and good fortune had it that I had been to the bank. And so had fair amount of money. So I went over to him and I said, Tom, I'm so grateful. I don't know what I would have done without you. Would you please accept some money? And he said, oh, I couldn't do that, Pamela. I said, please, I would feel so much better. So I gave him a wad of money. I didn't bother to count it. I didn't know his situation at all. Well, Chantel called me later and said, you need to know that Tom and his little boy were going to be evicted the next day because they hadn't paid the rent. The money you gave him was enough to pay off the rent. He had a little bit, and enough to keep him going to buy food for a week because he'd got a job starting that week, and then he'd get paid at the end of the week. So as I looked back, and these aren't coincidences. This was real. The Lord had two people in mind who needed help, and he sent me to the bank, and he sent me elsewhere, and what have you. And I was in tears at that time, driving away, and realizing the joy that I felt because I had followed the Lord's nudge and shove, and the joy it had brought to those people. And I was just overwhelmed. In fact, I think I said hallelujah.
Well, I have to tell you, Pamela, for those who are watching this podcast on YouTube, the lady you are looking at on the left-hand side of your screen not only looks like an angel, she is an angel here on the earth. And we are so touched that you are so close to that inner voice, to that holy essence, to the Lord himself, that you would be so sensitive to that. It's interesting because even in the secular world, Pamela, there is an acknowledgement of that inner voice, of that holy nudge, as you call it, but they call it many different things. And even in those secular circles, they will acknowledge that inner voice is always right. How do you account for that?
I think it's part of the spiritual world, but it's also part of everyday life, that there has to be a purpose for us being here on earth. It isn't just, just live your life. It's doing something with your life. And I do believe in a life afterwards. But I think we're here for a purpose. And I think this inner voice keeps reminding us, what good have I done today? What have I done for someone today? I have a box up in my brain here. It's called Education of Pamela. And as I learn every day from different people, and my homeless friends, refugees and low-income people have taught me so much and have taught me how to value life. During the pandemic, I worried that I couldn't help people. But my word, we were able to help people through phone calls, getting the necessary resources, and we continued to make a difference during the pandemic. Now I'm out and about more and doing a walkabout amongst my homeless friends, and they're so grateful that we were able to be in touch. But there's that inner voice saying it doesn't matter the circumstances. Everybody can do something. Like the lady who, before she died, she would send me a $10 check every month for one pair of socks that I could give to somebody who needed it. She didn't have much money, but I would tell her that one pair of socks, it saved this man from being laid off because of blisters. We got them healed up. It saved this lady from being able to wear shoes again because we got her feet healed with a new pair of socks. And so she died knowing that a small amount of caring, i.e. $10 a month, made a difference in people's lives. And that's why we all need to take a quiet time and listen to what that inner voice is saying on a daily basis. Have I done something worthwhile? Did I miss something? I know if I miss something, the Lord will have somebody else do it, but he'll be disappointed in me and I'll be disappointed in me. So we just have to keep very positive about the meaning of life and the opportunities that it gives us. It's in service to me, enhances the quality of my life. And I can talk with people and listen, and the art of listening has got to come back. Listen to somebody talk. That's the first thing. And second, understand what it is they're saying and where they're coming from. And that makes all the difference in the world. A smile, listening, that's a free gift that we can give to anybody, make a difference.
Wow, as people are listening to you, I know that I'm probably not the only one going, wow, I want to be like her.
Oh.
How would someone start if they're not familiar with that inner voice or that holy nudge? I love the holy shove. Where do you start becoming such a woman or man or person of service? How can they start training their mind to hear and to listen?
I think one needs to spend some quiet time, either in church or meditating at home, or driving up to Brighton and sitting there early in the morning and just thinking and meditating. And it's amazing to me that I hear the Lord saying, no, Pamela, no, somebody else is already doing that. Don't do that. Move in this direction. I think the first thing is to train oneself to listen. As I said previously, the art of listening is becoming a lost art. That is so sad. If we listen, like somebody said to me last week, Pamela, you've listened to me for 45 minutes and all you said is, oh. And she said, I feel so much better now. And she was smiling and she said, now I feel boosted up. Thank you so much. And off she went. I felt a bit loaded down with some of her problems, but she knew what she needed to do at that point. And I think the joy of listening has been lost. And it is an art, but one has to take the time and just sit and listen and keep eye contact with people and really understand what it is that they're saying, and then realize, what do I need to do? And then the thoughts start coming, I could do this and I could do that. And so the results of the art of listening is one starts listening even more, and particularly to that inner voice who say, yes, Pamela, go ahead and offer. You know what she needs or you know what he needs. And that just makes a huge difference. It's like when you make a difference in somebody else's life, because you've been listening to that inner voice, then you make a huge difference in your own life.
Isn't that interesting? So the first step is listening and learning to listen really well, not only to someone who may be sharing something with you, but also listening to that inner voice. Now, once you have gotten good at listening, having the courage to do what that inner voice tells you to do is a different matter altogether. And I would imagine that there was an arc where you got better and better and better at mustering up the courage to do what that holy nudge or that inner voice was telling you to do. Help us along that path just a little bit. How do you build up that courage?
You're absolutely right, Bob. It does take courage because sometimes you feel you're taking a risk with a person, and my heart starts beating and my palms start sweating and my stomach is churning. But it was like one legislator a few years ago. He was having a bad week, and I went up to him in the rotunda, and I said, Representative, you're having a bad week, aren't you? And he looked at me and he said, as a matter of fact, it's a terrible week. And I looked at him and I thought, oh, he needs a hug. But I'd never hugged him before. And I said, do you need a hug? And my heart was beating. And he said, actually, that's the one thing I do need. So I gave him a big hug. And then I said to him, you know, Representative, I disagree with you 75% of the time, but I still like you as a friend. And so I got another hug at that point. And then my heart slowed down. You know, he could have reacted very negatively. He was a bit grumpy at times. But sometimes you have to take a chance. And I never let issues interfere with relationships. If I disagree with somebody, I've learned now to ask them more questions to try to understand where they're coming from. It doesn't mean to say I'm going to agree with them at the end, but we can be friends and disagree, and we can laugh about it. But again, that takes patience and listening and never, ever letting issues interfere with relationships.
Mhm. Were you always good at following that inner voice, that holy nudge?
No, I just, no, I didn't. I used to be a pleaser and I used to want to please everybody. And so I didn't always do the right thing. And I read a quote from Walt Whitman who said, have you only learned from those to whom you said yes? Have you never learned from those to whom you said no? And so I used to sit in meetings and agree with everybody, even when I didn't. And also from The Merchant of Venice, where he says, to thine own self be true. And I thought, when I'm nodding my head, but I don't agree, I'm not being true to myself. So that's when I decided I needed to change. And so I would start speaking out and saying, I'm so sorry, but I don't agree with you. And they'd say, why? And my heart would be pounding, I'd be sweating, stomach turning over. But I'd be able to explain why I didn't agree. And then other people would say, well, I hadn't thought of it that way. And so I gradually got the courage to speak out more. And then as the more I spoke out, the more people would come up to me and say from a meeting, gosh, I wish I could have said what you said, but you said it in such a nice way. And I said, even when you disagree, you can say it in a very nice way that becomes quite positive, because you can let them know you respect their opinion, but you just happen to have a different opinion. And so people start to emulate what other people who do speak out. That's how I learned, looking at other people, was thinking, where did they get the courage? And after a while, it becomes, I just have to speak out. And then you say something different to what everybody else is saying.
Are there prerequisites to getting better at hearing your inner voice? I mean, are there, is it just simply a desire to listen carefully, or do we need to do certain things or not do certain things that would put us in a position to be able to hear that voice more clearly?
I think that's a good way of putting it. Sometimes I don't like what my inner voice is telling me, and it's telling me, you're not going about this the right way. Sometimes I've had to say to people in a group, I need to apologize because I was so wrong. I came across too strongly, didn't I? And there's a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive when you're trying to share what you feel your inner voice is telling you. If you cross over that fine line and become aggressive, your audience will be turned off and the nonverbal will come through, at which point I back off and I say, I am so sorry. I'm coming across too strongly, aren't I? And they'll say, yes. And so I say, let me start from the beginning, may I? And I do it in a more gentler fashion. And when you're with good friends will tell me when I'm doing something wrong. They'll say to me after a meeting, I think you offended so-and-so. my next step is to go to so-and-so and say, I'm so sorry if I offended you in that meeting. You know, forgiveness and apologizing, it doesn't take a lot, but one has to learn how to forgive oneself and learn how to forgive other people. I think we're so afraid that we're going to be put down or something bad is going to happen. And we just need to be stronger and go to someone and say, I'm terribly sorry, but your nonverbal in that meeting made me think I was saying something offensive. And, you know, when that's true, excuse me, they're delighted that you've come to them and that they can actually talk with you. And I walk away feeling, look what I just learned from him or her. And it's learning from people with whom you disagree, learning from people who you've offended. Just, I learn from my homeless friends, the refugees who have taught me about their homeland and their culture, the Afghan refugees who are coming, who are so traumatized. And I think I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to learn about trauma-informed care, and that all these people are making sure that we can help people who have been traumatized and learn from it to help the next group who come along. And if we look at life as a great learning experience, even from, you know, my dear homeless friends who have been on drugs and alcohol and what have you, there's always something positive that I can learn from them and put into practice the next time.
Wow, you are so seasoned at doing the right thing and being such a powerful influence. What if someone gets that holy nudge and then it turns into a holy shove, but they're scared? They are absolutely frightened to listen and do. What could you say to them?
That's a good question, because I used to be scared, and now I just want to know how I can help that person. And I'm not going to make suggestions. I'll say to the person, do you need some help? If so, what kind of help can I give you? Very often I can't give the help, but I can get that person to where they can get some help. The family that I found down at the Salvation Army one year, they were living in a pickup truck. Well, it was too late to get them into the shelter, but my goodness, I could call a motel and book a room for them, and then dissolve into tears as the 4-year-old said, Pamela, you mean I don't have to sleep in the truck? I can have a bed? I mean, wow. What a joy. And somehow the fact that you can do something or get somebody else to do something, eventually you get over your fear. It's like a couple of young girls from my church. They were watching me down at St. Vincent de Paul the other month. And 2 of the guys came up to me and gave me a big hug. They wanted to thank me for some stuff that I had given them the prior week and said what a difference it made. And so these 2 girls came up to me and said, Pamela, how did you feel when those 2 men hugged you? And I said, I just felt so great. I got a warm feeling. But, said one girl, they're dirty. I said, well, yes, I don't think they'd have had a bath or a shower in a while. But you know what? They were thanking me for helping them. But I didn't notice they were dirty. They were human beings that God loved as well as me, loved me. And we're equal. And I said, they trust me. And they knew I was not going to rebuff their wanting to hug me. And I said, with a homeless person, when they trust you, that is reaching the highest point, because then the love starts flowing between you and they look upon you as a friend. And, you know, it's rather wonderful talking to these 2 girls. And I noticed the next time they came down, they actually started talking to our homeless friends. And I think just through talking and through demonstration, but I think we have to notice when people do things. So when I see people go up to a stranger, and I'll wait and I'll say, how was that interaction? And they'll say, well, it was a little different because I really didn't know how to help them. I said, did you see the look on his face when you finished talking? He was smiling. You helped him just by talking with him. I said, you didn't walk past him. That walking past them without looking at them, a lot of our homeless friends feel they're not human beings. They're being ignored. So please be happy that you literally help them. I think noticing what people do and complimenting them on it and letting them know they've done a good thing, even if it's just a smile or just a friendly touch, I think we get people boosted up.
Wow, you have done so much. You have touched so many lives. You have taught so well. What's next?
You know, I'm not frightfully sure what's next. I keep on saying, okay, Lord, have I finished yet? And
no, you can't be finished yet.
And it's really interesting. I was thinking when Governor Herbert finished up last year, that was it for government. I'd been in it for quite a while. And then, so I said, okay, Lord, that's it for the legislature in the Capitol or what have you, in the governor. And as I said, if you want to give him a good chuckle, tell him you've got a plan, you're stepping away. And so the next day I got a phone call from Governor Spencer Cox saying, hey, Pamela, I have something to ask you. And so he asked me to be one of his senior advisors. And I'm still there. And I just laughed and said, I'm so glad you've got a sense of humor, Lord. And it's amazing to me that every time I think of stepping down, something happens. I get a phone call, I get a visit from somebody, I get a Zoom call. But one of these days, I'll gradually step away because it won't be everything at once. But I've just noticed that my pile of books is getting bigger, and I really would like to take some time off to read.
So you're telling the Lord you have a plan and there's something you want to do. Is that what you're telling him?
Yes, yes, and he's laughing, but I think that he may allow me to have a few days off a week. I got so caught up with working with people and agencies this last 2 years, I haven't had a vacation and time off. And I know I've been persuading everybody else to take time off, and they've been doing that statewide, and I'm glad they listened to me. Now I've got to listen to me and just have a little bit of time off, but walking away from everything, no, I'm not sure. I will probably still be boots on the ground, working with my homeless friends when I depart this life.
Mm.
You are an amazing, amazing woman.
In this podcast, in this episode, you have explained to us that and demonstrated to us the arc that you have lived from poverty yourself to and not ever wanting to be poor ever again, and not even associate with poor people ever again, to the point now where it has become your entire life and your life's mission. Can you describe to us what that arc has been like in your own learning?
It's been awesome. A few years ago, when President Bush was here with Senator Hatch, Senator Hatch had the opportunity to give people for $20,000 photos with President Bush. And he gave me a freebie. And so I was told I had 2 minutes with President Bush, and we were all lined up. And the Secret Service said, it's your turn now, Pamela. Don't forget, shake hands, say one thing, and then leave. And so I started to walk towards President Bush. And all I could do on the way across the ballroom was think about my growing up, the sexual abuse, all the things that had happened in my life that hadn't been good, and how the Lord had got me from where I was to where I was today. And so when President Bush said, hello, Pamela, how are you? Put his hand out. I just looked at him and said, wow. Now, he thought I was in awe of him, and it wasn't that. It was in awe of the Lord that had taken me through this journey that we call life and had done so many things for me. And so I didn't have the heart to tell him, but he and I had a chat, and Senator Hatch came over and told him what I did. We talked for about 15 minutes, much to the angst of the Secret Service. But one of the things that has become part of my life is the acronym TEAM, TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. And so what actually has happened, that I do some of the things that only the Lord and I know about that he wants me to do, but that I do many things as part of the team of providers and agencies and the clients themselves. And if we always remember that together everybody achieves more, I think much more will be achieved.
Wow.
You have filled our cups to overflowing. And we can't thank you enough, Pamela, for not only joining us here on the podcast, but also for all that you have done to bless the lives of literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people, not just here in Utah, but around the country and literally around the world, because you are a shining light. You are a beacon of hope and love and charity in such a way that no one could ever dispute the power of your influence and the goodness of who you are and what you have been doing and what you have become. And we can't thank you enough for all that you have done to exemplify the love of a loving God to his children, and the love that we have been commanded to show to each other. And so thank you so much, Pamela, for all you are and for being with us for this past little while. Is there anything you'd like to say as we wind up?
I'm just very grateful for you both and the friendship that we've shared over the years. That's been rather special. I just want people to know how easy it is to make a difference in somebody's life. If you're walking down Main Street, smile at everybody and say, "Hi, how are you?" It may cheer somebody up. It may help somebody. There's so many ways we can help people. And I just want people to know it becomes easier. And I want people to know that they may be set on the path to not only helping one person, but thousands eventually, because they decided to listen to that inner voice.
Wow.
Pamela Atkinson, thank you again for being with us. We love you. We are grateful to you and look forward to the next time we can get together.
Okay, thank you.
This is The Evans Life, a remarkable adventure.